welcome to Your Favourite Teacher. Today we're looking at English language. This is a biggie, so pay close attention and make sure you've downloaded our sources so you can follow as we go. Of your entire language paper 1, half the marks are rewarded in the reading section, responding to the source text given in questions 1 through 4. And the second half are given in a single separate writing section. Question 3, the structure question, comes next, worth 8 marks, just like question 2. And just like question 2, we're going to aim to spend about 10 minutes on this one. At this point in the paper, you're asked to think about the whole of the source. In most cases, you are told this text is taken from the beginning of a novel, a detail which shouldn't be left forgotten and that we'll discuss later on. But then, most baffling of all, the wording never changes. The question, how is the text structured to interest you as a reader? In this video, we'll go over the main goal and requirements of question 3 and how to analyse their choices in your own written answers. To begin, let's look at the first half of the question. How is the text structured? Forget about whether or not you're interested for a minute. What does the question mean when it asks you to look at the structure of a text? Structure can refer to a range of things, the whole text, paragraph, and sentence-level decisions that the author makes. Imagine, before the author begins writing their story, they already know what they want to happen. What's left is to decide what order the story is told in and how events, conflict, and information is delivered to the reader. The decisions they make fall into those broad categories: whole text, paragraph, and sentence. Notice right away that word-level choices is not a category, so paying attention to the effects of individual words generally should be avoided. Whole text decisions refers to 3 simple things: beginnings, endings, and perspective shifts. Where does the text begin? Where does the text end? What significant differences are there between these 2 points in time, and how did this difference come about? Paragraph-level decisions refer to where and how topics might change in the text, or how ideas are carried over from one paragraph to the next. Is there a clear shift from paragraph to paragraph? What is consistent across all the paragraphs? Is there anything which causes new paragraphs to begin and introduce new topics? Sentence-level decisions are the kind of sentences the author chooses to write, but should be one of the last and least important structural choices you want to refer to in your analysis. Are there any sudden, short, gripping sentences? Are there any long, slowly unravelling sentences which add to the tension in the text? These are the sorts of questions you'll have to ask yourself as you read through the text as a whole. Ultimately, your ability to analyse structure is assessed very similarly to your ability to analyse language. Just make sure that you A. present a clear idea about the author's structure, a point. B. give some form of evidence to back up that idea. C. explain why it is you think the structure is effective and what it causes the reader to think or feel. This is where that second part of the question, about how the text interests you as a reader, comes into play. The word interest should remind you to consider the effects of any choices you see the author making in their piece. So, if the goal of question 3 is to get you thinking about larger whole text choices the author might have made, what are the requirements? Well, we've already mentioned that the requirements of the question are very similar to question 2, on language paper 1, the language question. In terms of writing your answer, the most important part is for you to talk about the effect of any choices authors make. Like we said before, focus on the whole text, paragraph and sentence level choices which you think have been made for a particular reason. Not sure what kind of choices to analyse? Here's a few solid questions to consider as you read through the text. Number 1. What is the writer focusing my attention on at the start? Number 2. How is this focus made clear for the readers? Number 3. Why might the author want to focus on this at the beginning? Number 4. After the beginning, what about the focus changes or develops? Number 5. How is this focus changed or developed? Number 6. Are there any significant changes or developments in the paragraphs or sentences so far? Number 7. Why might the author have focused on these changes or developments? Number 8. What is meaningful or important about these changes? Number 9. By the end, how has the text changed? Number 10. Why might the writer have caused this change to occur? In your writing, you are then required to be able to be concise, brief but specific in answering these questions. Notice how the questions always follow the pattern of what, how, and then why. Remembering and answering these questions in this pattern through your paragraphs will help make it clear you knew how the choices the author made affected the reader. To look at how to write these concise explanations, we're going to use the extract City of the Beasts. We'll start by writing that what and how and why sequences of questions and then put our ideas into written answers. For more on how to analyse, annotate and develop your ideas about structure, we have a second video on analysing structure more generally, which will be helpful. Now though, those first 3 questions. What is the writer focusing my attention on at the start of the text? How is this focus made clear for the readers? Why might the author want to focus on this at the beginning? As we read the first paragraph of the text, let's keep these in mind. Remember what, how, and why. Alexander Cold awakened at dawn, startled by a nightmare. He had been dreaming that an enormous black bird had crashed against the window with a clatter of shattered glass, flown into the house, and carried off his mother. In the dream, he had watched helplessly as it clasped her clothing in its yellow claws, flew out the same broken window, and disappeared into a sky heavy with dark clouds. First, what has been focused on? A number of things might stand out to you. Alex is waking up suddenly. The nightmare itself, or Alex's sense of fear might have stood out. But how have each of these things been made clear for us through the structure? Well, the author chooses to begin the paragraph, and in fact the whole text, with her lead character being startled by a nightmare. Referring to that exact sentence would be a wise choice. How else though? The first paragraph tells us that Alex has nightmares about his mother being taken away, really focusing us on that nightmare and the terrifying events and prospect of Alex losing his mother. Also, like we said, she repeatedly shows us Alex is frightened throughout that paragraph. Introducing his character as a very frightened, helpless individual might be something else you want to mention. All of these would be great structural choices to pick up on. But remember, we need a how, something clear and specific which we can evidence. First, let's write out our what and how before moving on to explaining why. What is the writer focusing us on in the beginning of this text? The author begins by introducing Alex and the nightmare which suddenly awakens him, describing his mother being taken away in a dream. From this, we can very clearly demonstrate that we know what the author has done in terms of structuring the text, but how? Readers' attention is focused in the first sentence on the fact that Alex is startled by a nightmare. Readers also discover in the following sentences that in a dream he saw a giant bird which carried off his mother. For this, don't think that evidence is just the quote. Remember, you're explaining how the author has structured the text. Our actual valuable evidence is the fact that we referred to the first sentence and that we discovered the rest of the dream in the following sentences. By being able to refer to specific sentences, paragraphs, or sequences of information, you're evidencing the fact that you know how the structure has been created and how the order of events in the text unfold. That's the most important part of structure. Now then, we come to the why. There is a temptation sometimes to overcomplicate things. Remember, why is just explaining what effect the author has had. Why might they have chosen to structure the text in this way? If you're going to explain what the author did, it's good to refer to their action. In this case, we are interested in the fact that they focused readers' attention on Alex's nightmare. So, we will write, by focusing on Alex's frightening nightmare and the possibility of his mother being taken away, here we've just referred back to the decision the author made before we've even explained it. By focusing on Alex's frightening nightmare and the possibility of his mother being taken away, readers can begin to understand Alex's own emotions towards his mother and how much he cares for her, because he is so frightened by the prospect of her being taken away. Then, as we go on to read the rest of the text, we might want to look out for how the fear Alex feels or his emotions towards his mother are changed or developed for us in an interesting way. 3 paragraphs like this, detailing the beginning, middle, and then the end of the text, will show that you've comprehended the source as a whole. For now though, we'll leave it at that first paragraph, having already explained what the author has done, how they've done it, and why they chose to. Following these 3 steps in each paragraph will ensure that your answer addresses these choices the author made. Like we said before, the author knows where they want to take you in their text. They just have to decide how they put together to best interest you. It's these decisions that Language Paper 1 Question 3 asks you to focus on. Here's an example paragraph. The author begins by introducing Alex and the nightmare which suddenly awakens him, describing his mother being taken away in the dream. Readers' attention is focused in the first sentence on the fact that Alex is startled by a nightmare. Readers also discover in following sentences that the dream he saw a giant bird which carried off his mother. By focusing on Alex's frightening nightmare and the possibility of his mother being taken away, readers can begin to understand Alex's own emotions towards his mother and how much he cares for her. This is clear because he is so frightened by the prospect of her leaving. So, hopefully you have a clear idea and can try this on your own. I'm Miss Meeks with your favourite teacher, and we've been tackling the English language GCSE.